Hello everyone, this is Aparna Shetty, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, AG Institute of Engineering and Technology. I would like to continue with multi-threaded programming. Okay, that is Module 4 of the subject Object-Oriented Concepts. So in the previous video lecture, I had done till creating threads by using the runnable interface. Okay, so in this video lecture let us see how to create threads by extending the thread class, creating multiple threads, okay, that is more than 2 threads how to create, and also we will see synchronization. Okay, so let us begin. So as we know that there are two approaches for creating a thread. One is by implementing the runnable interface, and one more approach is by extending the thread class. So in this lecture we will see how to create threads by extending the thread class also. So the second way to create a thread is to create a new class that extends thread and then to create an instance of that class. So you have to create a class that will extend the thread class, okay, and then you need to create an instance of that class. Okay, I have to create a class which is a subclass of a thread class, and I have to create an object of that class. Okay, so that is all we have to do when we are using the extending thread class to create thread. The extending class must override the run method, which is the entry point for the new thread. Okay, as we have already seen the thread class, correct? In the thread class there are some already predefined methods are there, correct? And among those methods we also have run method and start method. So when a class is going to extend that thread class, it can directly use the methods of that thread class. That is why in this extending class you can override the run method of the thread class. Okay, and this run method is the entry point for the new thread. It must also called start to begin execution of the new thread. Okay, so the class or the extending class must also call the start method. This method is used to begin the execution of the new thread. So the extending class must override both the run method and the start method of the thread class. So this is about creating threads by extending the thread class. Okay, so one way to create a thread is to create a new class that extends a thread class and then to create an object of that class. Okay, and this class, that is the extending class, must override the run method and the start method of the thread class. So let us go through this program. This program is used to create a thread by extending the thread class. Okay, so here if you see we have created a class thread2 which extends the class thread. Okay, so thread2 is a subclass of thread. As we have already seen that we have to create a class which will extend the thread class, and then we have to create an object of this thread2 class. Right, we have to create an object of the thread2 class, and we have to override the start and the run method of the thread class. So I want you all to see here first 3 steps, okay, for creating threads by extending the thread class. First you have to create a class which will extend the thread class. Okay, next within this constructor of thread2 I am supposed to create an object of this class. Okay, I am supposed to create an object of this class. Next I need to override the start method and the run method of the thread class. Okay, so these are the 4 steps to create a thread by extending the thread class. Okay, now over here you see, we'll start tracing this program from the beginning. I created a class thread2 which extends thread. Then in the constructor of thread2, what I have done, I have called super, okay, with the parameter demo thread. We have already seen the use of the super keyword, right? This super is used to call the constructor of the base class. Which is the base class here? Thread. So it is used to, within thread2 class or within the subclass constructor, you are making a call to the super class constructor, okay, by making use of the keyword super, and to that constructor you are passing the parameter demo thread. Okay, demo thread is a string that you are passing to the constructor. So when you are calling that constructor over here, you are going to create a new object. Okay, you are going to create a new object for thread2 class. Okay, and this object is given the name as a demo thread. So you are going to give the name as demo thread. Okay, so over here when you call the superclass constructor, we are creating an object of a thread2 class, and that object is given the name as demo thread. Okay, now this object itself is treated as a thread. Okay, this object over here is itself treated as a thread. So that is why in the next statement over here, system.out.println, we are displaying the child thread, correct? We are displaying the child thread over here. So we have created an object. When we are, as I told you, when we create an object, actually we are creating a new thread. So in the next println statement, we are displaying that child thread and we are appending with this. Okay, you already know that this keyword represents the current object or the object of the class thread2. Okay, over here this keyword over here represents an object of class thread2, which is indirectly the thread, okay, which is nothing but the thread itself. Okay, so here using this super constructor, we have created a new thread. In the next statement, we are displaying that thread, child thread, and in the next statement we are going to start the thread. Okay, see here directly we are going to use the start method and the run method, because the start and run method are predefined in this thread class, correct? And since thread2 is a subclass of this thread class, we can directly use the methods of the thread class over here. No need to use any object and all. Directly we can access the methods of the superclass, that is the thread class. So we call the start method, and the start method will start the execution of the child thread. Okay, and it will call the run method for the child thread to execute. Okay, now within the run method we have defined what task that thread is supposed to perform. Okay, so here we have the try block and the catch block. So what we are doing, what this child thread will do is, it will display the values of I. Okay, that is, it will display the values of I from 5 to 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, using this for loop, it will display the value of I with the delay of 500 milliseconds. Okay, here thread.sleep, you are adding a delay to the thread execution. So you are making the thread to sleep for 500 seconds. So you will display the values of I here using the for loop with the delay of 500 milliseconds. Okay, and this is put in the try block. Okay, because when the thread is sleeping, sometimes the sleeping thread might be interrupted. Okay, if the sleeping thread is interrupted, an exception occurs. In that case, the exception will be thrown to this catch block, which will handle the interrupted exception. okay, and it will just print that child is interrupted. Okay, so after performing the task, once the thread inside the run method of the thread, okay, once it performs its task, that is, it displays the value of I with the delay of 500 milliseconds. Finally, you will print exiting the child thread, and you'll close the run method and then close the thread2 class. Okay, so what task that thread is supposed to perform, that you have to put it in the inside the run method of the thread class. Okay, so this was how we are going to create a thread by extending the thread class. Okay, see the main method over here, class extend thread, public static void main. Here we are creating an object of thread2, that is, we are making a call to the constructor of thread2. Here as we already know that the first thread that begins execution when your program begins, okay, when your program begins, the first thread that runs is the main thread. Okay, so the main thread over here calls the constructor of thread2. Okay, now in the constructor of thread2, it is going to create a new child thread, correct, and the child thread will start executing. Okay, whereas the main thread over here, after it calls the constructor of thread2, okay, it continues with the remaining of its task. Here in the main method, the main thread continues with its task. Okay, so inside main method we have main thread executing. Okay, but inside the thread2 class we have the, over here we have the child thread executing. That you have to remember. So the main thread, what it will do is, main thread also will display the values of I from 5 to 1, okay, with the delay of 1000 milliseconds. So the main thread over here will also display the values of I, okay, with the delay of 1000 milliseconds. Okay, that here we have also defined the try and the catch block to handle the exception. That is, if the sleeping thread is interrupted over here, then an exception will occur, and that exception is handled by the catch block over here, which will handle the interrupted exception. Okay, it will display like main thread is interrupted. And finally, after displaying all the digits from 5 to 1 with the delay of 1000 milliseconds, at the end it will display main thread exiting, close the run method, close the main method and close the class. Okay, here we have not in this class, that is extend thread, the child thread is not executing, the main thread is only executing. Okay, so this was about creating threads by extending the thread class. Let us execute this program and see, so that you will understand it better. So let us see extend thread class over here. Okay, if we run this program, can you see here, first the details of child thread got printed. Okay, the name of the thread was demo thread. By default thread priority is 5 and belongs to the main group. Okay, that thread belongs to the main group. Okay, can you see the main thread and the child thread both are executing, correct? Simultaneously both are executing. Okay, and here the child thread is exiting, the main thread will continue its task, and finally the main thread will exit. Okay, so here in this program we have created two threads. We have created just one thread. By default we have one main thread. Okay, as soon as the program starts, there is a main thread that is executing. So main thread is executing in the class extend thread. Okay, so because the main method starts from here, the main thread starts executing. Inside thread2 class, what you have done inside that constructor, you have created a new thread. Okay, you have created a new thread and you have started the execution of that child thread also. So inside the thread2 class, the child thread is executing, whereas inside the main method over here, the main thread is executing. Okay, so this is how the output looks like. Both the main thread and child thread are executing together. Okay, but you have to remember that the last thread that finishes executing should be the main thread. Okay, always the main thread should be exiting last. Okay, so this was how this program executed. So that was how we created threads by extending the thread class. So the call to the super inside new thread invokes the following form of the thread constructor. Okay, thread string thread name. As I already told you, we are making a call to the superclass constructor, correct? Okay, that is, in other words, we are making a call to the constructor of the thread class. So that constructor has this particular prototype. Okay, it takes a parameter, a string, which is the thread name. So the thread name specifies the name of the thread. Next, now we have seen two approaches for creating threads, correct? There are two approaches. First approach was by implementing the runnable interface, and the second approach was by extending the thread class. Now, how to choose which approach? Okay, which one is better? Whether implementing runnable interface is better or whether extending the thread class is better. So let us see which approach is better. The thread class defines several methods that can be overridden by the derived class. As we have already seen the different methods in the thread class, right? In the beginning of this chapter, we have seen the different methods of the thread class. Okay, so those methods can be overridden by the derived class. As we saw in the previous example, we have overridden the start and the run method, right? We have just overridden the run method. Okay, start method we are making use of the thread class. Okay, run method we have provided our own implementation. We have overridden the run method. Okay, because start method we are not changing the implementation of start method, we are just calling that start method, right? But in the run method we are providing our own action for the thread. Okay, so the run method is overridden, but we are making use of both the start and the run method of the thread class. Okay, in the subclass, okay, or in the derived class, we are making use of both the run and the start method of the thread class. Yes, that is why the thread class defines several methods that can be overridden by the derived class. Of these methods, the only one that must be overridden is run. Okay, because we are changing the implementation of the run method, correct? We are providing our own code inside that run method. So the only one that must be overridden is run method. This is of course the same method required when you implement runnable, correct? When we implement the runnable interface also, we are making use of the same method. Many Java programmers feel that classes should be extended only when they are being enhanced or modified in some way. Okay, so that is what they are telling. So a programmer should go for extending the thread class. Okay, a Java programmer should only extend the thread class, okay, when they are being enhanced or modified. When you want to enhance the thread class or modify the thread class in some way, in that case only you should go for extending the thread class. Otherwise you have to implement the runnable interface. Okay, so when you are modifying or enhancing the thread class, only in that case you should go for extending the thread class. Otherwise you have to go for implementing the runnable interface. Okay, that is what they are telling. So if you will not be overriding any of the threads other methods other than run, if you are not going to override the other methods of the thread class, it is probably best simply to implement runnable. Okay, so it is probably the best to implement runnable. okay, if you are just going to override the run method. Okay, so if you will not be overriding any of the threads other methods other than run, if you are not going to override any of the other methods in the thread class, you should simply go for the implementing the runnable interface. If you are going to override the other methods also, okay, other than run method, if you are going to implement, if you are going to override the other methods also, then you should go for extending the thread class. Otherwise, simply go for implementing the runnable interface. But it is left to the programmers. So at the end of the day, it is left to the programmer. This is what they suggest you, the Java developers suggest you. Okay, but what you use, whether you are extending the thread class or whether you are going to implement the runnable interface, that is left to the programmer. Next topic is creating multiple threads. So till now we have seen only execution of two threads, correct? That is the main thread and the child thread. We have seen executing of main thread and the child thread simultaneously, correct? Now in this topic we will be creating more than two threads. Okay, we will be seeing how 2 or 3 child threads will be executing simultaneously. So let us begin. So far we have been using only 2 threads, the main thread and 1 child thread. However, our program can spawn as many threads as it needs. So in one program you can create as many child threads as you need. Okay. So create multiple threads. For creating multiple threads, this is an example program. First, in most of our examples over here, we are going to implement the runnable interface only. Okay, almost all the examples we are going to implement the runnable interface for creating threads. Okay, so in this example also we are creating the thread by implementing the runnable interface. So class thread3 implements runnable. Okay, here we are declaring a variable called as name. We are creating a variable t which is of type thread. Okay. Next, this is the constructor for thread3. It takes one parameter, that is the string, which represents the thread name. Okay, and then this data name of class thread, it will assign it to thread name. So thread name is assigned to name over here. Next, the t variable which is of type thread, what you're doing over here is new thread this comma name. Okay, so over here we are going to create a new child thread. Okay, for creating a new child thread, we are calling the thread constructor. Okay, we are calling the thread constructor which will take 2 parameters. One is the this represents the current threads object. Current class object. Which is the current class? We are in which class? We are in thread3 class. So this represents an object of thread3 class. Okay, or this represents the object of the class that implements runnable. Okay, and one more parameter that we are passing to the thread constructor is name. So here we are creating a new child thread, okay, of this object or of the object of thread3 class, and with the name that is given, that is in the value name. Okay, and that object reference is stored in t. Okay, so whenever you are going to implement the runnable interface, okay, you have to remember 2 things. Okay, so implementing the runnable interface over here, first I have to create a variable of type thread. Okay, I have to create a variable of type thread. One more thing what I have to do is that variable which is of type thread, that I have to assign it to new thread constructor. I have to call the thread constructor, okay, with the object of the class that implements runnable, and I have to pass a string parameter, that is name. So I have to call the thread constructor with this object and the name for the thread, okay, which will return me an object to which will return me a reference to the thread, and that reference will be stored in T. So these two steps are important whenever you are creating a thread by implementing the runnable interface. You have to create a variable of type thread, and you have to create a new object by calling the thread constructor, okay, and that object reference you have to assign it to T. Next, let us see then that thread object, okay, that thread T dot start method, okay, I call to start the thread, okay. Over here I call the start method to start the thread. Whenever we make a when we call the start method of the thread, the start method will directly call the run method. So the run method starts executing entry point of the thread. The run method will be called by the start method. Yes, over here again inside the run method it is the same thing. We are displaying the name of the thread, colon, and the value of I, okay. That is, using this for loop we are displaying the values of I, that is from 5 to 1 with the delay of 1000 milliseconds. So this thread, we will display the name of the thread, colon, and the value of I, okay, that is from 5 to 1 with the delay of 1000 milliseconds. We have the try block and the catch block, and finally inside the run method we will be displaying the name of the thread and a string that is exiting, okay. Close the run method. Here if you see, we are writing another class, multi-thread demo. Inside this class I have defined the main method, okay. Here inside the main method, you know that there is a main thread that is executing, okay. This main thread, okay, creates 3 objects of thread3 class, okay. So it is calling the constructor of thread3 class with 3 parameters, okay. So 1, 2 and 3, or in other words I have to call, if I have to tell, 1, 2 and 3 are the names of the threads, okay, that you are going to pass to thread3 constructor. So inside thread3 constructor, see the thread3 constructor, inside this thread3 constructor what they will do, that name, thread name is assigned to name, and a new thread is created with that name, okay. So because we are calling the thread3 constructor 3 times, okay, with 3 parameters, that is 1, 2 and 3, here 3 threads are created with the name, 3 threads are created with the name 1, 2 and 3, because thread3 constructor is called 3 times, okay. So since thread3 is called thrice, okay, we are calling thread3 thrice. So here 3 threads are created with the names 1, 2 and 3, okay. 3 threads are created. 3 child threads are created with the name 1, 2 and 3. And finally the main method will continue with its execution. The main method does nothing over here. It will just sleep for 10,000 milliseconds. That is, it will just wait for the child threads to complete its execution, okay. Once the child thread completes its execution, the main thread will exit, okay. And in thread3, in the thread3 class, okay, all the 3 threads will be executing, okay. You will call the start method for thread 1, you will call the start method for thread 2, and you will call the start method for thread 3. When you call the start method, the run method for the thread starts executing, okay. So let us see how this program executes, so we will understand it better. Not this one. multi-thread. So here, see here in multi-thread demo.java, we have created 3 child threads, correct? We are calling thread3 constructor with the parameter 1, 2 and 3. So in the thread3 constructor, we are going to create a new thread. So each time the thread3 constructor is called, a new thread will be called with that particular name. Okay, so first time you call the thread3 constructor with the parameter 1, okay, that is the name of the thread. A thread will be created with the name 1, okay, and that thread will be started. You will call the start method for the thread and the thread will start running. Okay, second time you call the thread3 constructor with the parameter 2. In that case, one more child thread is created with the name 2. You will call the start method for that thread and that thread starts executing by calling the run method. And third time you call thread3 constructor with the parameter 3. Over here a new thread is created with the name 3. Okay, with the name 3, and you call the start method for that thread, and finally the 3 thread will also execute. Okay, so that was about multi-threading. The main thread will execute in the main method and the child thread will execute inside thread3 class. So let us see the output of this program. Okay, see here, this is the output of the previous program. We'll see the output of this program. I'll run it here. See here, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 child threads are executing. Can you see the child threads executing? Okay, finally they will exit, correct, and finally the main thread will be exiting. Okay, so that was how the child 3 exited and finally the main thread got exited. So the main thread will always exit last. Okay, so in this program I have created 3 child threads with the name 1, 2 and 3. All the 3 child threads have the same priority 5 and all of them belong to the same group main. Okay, this is their execution. So they will display the numbers 5 to 1, all the 3 threads, 1, 2, 3, and all the 3 threads will display the values 5 to 1. Okay, and finally they will be exiting. First the children will exit and after that the main thread will exit. Okay, so this was about the program creating multiple threads, more than 2 threads. Okay, so this was the output of that program, right? We have seen the output. Next topic, using isAlive and join methods. Okay, let us see. This isAlive and join methods are defined in the thread class, right? So let us see these methods here. The use of these 2 methods, isAlive and join. Now, how can one thread know whether another thread has ended? Okay, that is one question. How can one thread know whether another thread has ended or whether it is still running? 2 ways exist to determine whether a thread has finished. Okay, to determine whether a thread has finished, there are 2 ways. First, you can call isAlive method on the thread. This method is defined by the thread and its general form is final boolean isAlive. Okay, so this isAlive method has a return type of boolean. Okay, so isAlive will return true or false. Okay, so if the thread is alive, it will return true, and if the thread is false, it will return if the thread is not alive, that is thread has already exited, then it will return false. Okay, the isAlive method returns true if the thread upon which it is called is still running. otherwise it will return false. The method that you will more commonly use to wait for a thread to finish is called a join method. Okay, so whenever you want to wait for one thread to finish, that time you can use this join method. This is the general form of the join method. Final void join. Okay, it throws interrupted exception. So this method can throw interrupted exceptions. So whenever you are going to use the join method, you are going to define the try block and a catch block, and the catch block should handle this interrupted exception, because this method is going to throw interrupted exception, and thus it has to be handled by the calling method. Okay. This method waits until the thread on which it calls terminates. Okay, so join method is used to wait for one thread to terminate. Let us see the using of these join methods. Okay, join and isAlive, both we are using. So I have this new class thread4 which implements runnable. Okay. It has two data, the name and a thread variable I am creating here. So you know that whenever we are going to implement a runnable, we have to create, first we have to create a variable of type thread. Okay, and the next that variable we have to assign it to an object of thread class, correct? So these two steps are used to create a thread by implementing runnable interface. First we have to create a variable of type thread. Then within the constructor of that class, we are going to create a new thread, and that thread will be represented by T. Okay. So inside thread4 constructor over here, which will take the thread name as a parameter, that thread name it will assign it to name. Here the next statement, we are going to create a new thread for this object with the name represented by name. Then we will display that new thread which is created, and we will start that thread. Okay. So this was about the thread4 class. We have called the start method for the thread. The start method will call the run method, right? So this is the run method. In the run method, the thread will print the values from 5 to 1 with a delay of 1000 milliseconds. We have defined the try block and the catch block because we are calling thread.sleep here. Okay. So this was about the run method for the thread. And finally, we will display the thread is going to exit. Okay. That is the name of the thread and exiting. Let us see the main method. The main method is defined inside the class demo join. Okay. So here we are creating 3 objects. Okay. We are going to create 3 objects of thread4 class. Okay. So we are calling the thread4 constructor over here with 3 parameters, 1, 2 and 3. So in other words, if I have to tell, here we are creating 3 child threads, correct? We are creating 3 child threads with the names 1, 2 and 3. So 3 threads are created with the names 1, 2 and 3. Okay. And that is in the thread4 class, these threads are created, child threads. Okay. Next, I will just check if these threads are alive. Okay. So object 1 represents the first thread, that is 1. So object 1.t.isAlive, it will return me whether thread 1 is alive or not. So it will return true. Okay, initially it will be alive, so it will return true. The second println statement tests whether thread 2 is alive. So object 2 is an object which is representing thread 2. Right? So object 2 dot t dot is alive, okay, will return me whether thread 2 is alive or not. Okay, so as I told, initially it will be true. Okay, initially it will be alive. As soon as you create the thread, it will be alive. And finally we are testing whether thread 3 is alive. So thread 3 is represented by object 3 here. So object 3 dot t dot is alive will return me whether the third thread is alive or not. Next, see, inside the try block we are calling the join method. That is, we are waiting for the 3 child threads to finish. How we will wait for the 3 child threads to finish? By call the join method. That is object 1 dot t dot join, which represents thread 1. Object 2 dot t dot join, which waits for thread 2 to finish. Object 3 dot t dot join will wait for thread 3 to finish. So by calling the join method, you are waiting for all the 3 threads to finish. Okay, now as I told you, we have seen in the general form, this join method will throw interrupted exception. So you have to write it within the try block, and you need to have the catch block defined, which will handle that interrupted exception. Next, again we will call the isAlive methods for object 1, object 2 and object 3. Okay, testing whether thread 1, thread 2 and thread 3 are alive. In this case it will return me false, since here we are already waiting for the thread to finish. Once it finishes, we will come out of this. Okay, and again testing whether the threads are alive. Obviously the isAlive method will return false. Okay, since the threads have already finished. And finally the main thread will be exiting. Okay, so here this is a program demonstrating the use of the join method and isAlive. So let us execute this program and see demo join. Okay, so in demo join, what we did initially, we created 3 objects of thread 4 class. Okay, so here in the thread 4 constructor we created 3 threads with that particular parameter. With the parameter 1, 2 and 3 we created 3 threads. Okay, and you started and you allowed those 3 threads to execute here. So the 3 child threads, that is 1, 2 and 3, were executing inside the thread 4 class. Okay, inside the main method, the main thread was executing. First it tested whether the 3 threads are alive. Okay, then the main thread waited for the 3 child thread to finish its execution, and finally the main thread exited. Okay, before exiting it again tested whether the 3 threads are alive, and then it will exit. Okay, so this was how this program executed. Let us run it and see. See here. See the output here. Here first we created 3 threads, correct? 1, 2 and 3, correct? Before thread 3 is created, already thread 1 started executing. Okay, if you see here, before the third thread was created, already thread 1 started executing. Next, the main thread called isAlive method, whether thread 1 is alive, thread 2 is alive, thread 3 is alive. Okay, since all the 3 threads are alive, isAlive method will return true. Then you are waiting for the threads to finish. So you are waiting for the thread to complete its executing and finish its execution. Okay, so once all the 3 threads exit, 1 exiting, 2 exiting, 3 exiting, once all the 3 threads exit, next again the main thread will check whether the threads are alive. So thread 1 is alive, now it will return false since they have exited. Already thread 1 is exited, right? Similarly, already thread 2 is exited, so it will return false. And finally, already thread 3 is exited, so it will return false. isAlive will return false this time. Okay, and at the end the main thread will exit. So this was how we used the join and the isAlive methods, okay, to check whether the thread is exiting or not. Okay, so this was how the output of the program looked like. Okay, next topic is thread priorities. Okay, now thread priorities are used by the thread scheduler to decide when each thread should be allowed to run. Okay, so the thread scheduler has to decide when each thread should be allowed to run, so that it will decide based on the priority of the thread. So a higher priority thread can also preempt a low priority one. For instance, when a low priority thread is running and a higher priority thread resumes, it will preempt the low priority thread. Okay, so always when you have a low priority thread executing and that time a higher priority thread resumes, that is, it is ready to run. Might be that thread was sleeping or waiting for an input output. Okay, in such situations, the higher priority thread, once it finishes a task, it will resume. That is, it is ready to run. In that case, it will preempt the low priority thread. To set a thread priority, use the set priority method, which is a member of the thread class. Okay, so if you want to assign a certain priority to a thread, you can use the set priority method. This is the general form of the set priority method. Okay, final void set priority int level. Okay, what priority you want to you want the thread to set, that you have to specify over here by the level parameter. The level specifies the new priority setting for the calling thread. The value of level must be within the range min priority and max priority. Currently these values are 1 and 10 respectively. So what value you are giving for priority, so the value that you want to give for this level should always be within this range, that is from 1 to 10. That is within the range of min priority and max priority. To return a thread to default priority, specify norm priority, which is currently 5. As I have already told that the default priority for any thread will be 5. Okay, that default priority, that is 5 value, is represented by norm priority. These priorities are defined as static final variables within the thread class. Okay, so all these priorities are defined as static final variables within the thread class. Okay, static final variables means, static means it refers to the class. You cannot access those variables by creating the object of that class. Final variables means you cannot change the value of that variable, right? So you can obtain the current priority setting by calling the get priority method of the thread class. So by using the get priority method, you can find out what is the priority of that thread. So final int get priority will return the thread's priority. Next topic is synchronization. Okay, so when two or more threads need access to a shared resource, they need some way to ensure that the resource will be used by only one thread at a time. So whenever two or more threads, okay, they are going to share a resource. Okay, you must ensure that the resource will be used by only one thread at a time. So at a time, only one thread can use that resource. Okay, multiple threads cannot use the resource at the same time. So you need to ensure that the resource will be used by only one thread at a time. The process by which this is achieved is called synchronization. Okay, that is the process of ensuring that the resource will be used by only one thread at a time is called as synchronization. Key to synchronization is the concept of monitor. Okay, just like how we have semaphores. Now what is a semaphore? We know that semaphore is nothing but it is a data structure which controls the access to the resource. Okay, just like how we have semaphores, we have in Java a concept called as monitor. Okay, a monitor is used to control the access to the resource. Okay, so let us see what this monitor is now. A monitor is an object that is used as a mutually exclusive lock or mutex. Okay, now what is mutually exclusive lock? Two threads cannot acquire the object lock at the same time. Okay, so two threads cannot acquire that lock at the same time. Only one thread can acquire that object lock at the same time. When a thread acquires a lock, it is said to have entered the monitor. When a thread acquires that lock, it enters into the monitor. All other threads attempting to enter the locked monitor will be suspended until the first thread exits the monitor. Okay, so here we have something called as monitor, right? So only one thread can own this monitor at a given time. At a given time, only one thread can own this monitor. Okay, so when a thread acquires a lock, it is said to have entered the monitor. Okay, suppose you have two threads here, T1 and T2. Okay, suppose if T1 has acquired the lock, it is said to have entered the monitor. Okay, when a thread is inside that monitor, that means it has acquired the lock and it has access to that resource. Okay, now the remaining threads attempting to enter the lock will be suspended. Now since here thread 2 is also waiting for the monitor, correct? It cannot enter the monitor because thread 1 is already inside the monitor. Thread 2 has to wait until thread 1 comes out of the monitor. Only after thread 1 comes out of the monitor, then only thread 2 can enter into the monitor. Okay, this is what they are telling. Okay, only one thread can enter into a monitor at a given time. In other words, only one thread can acquire a lock at a given time. All other threads have to wait, okay, to enter into the monitor. They have to wait until the first thread exits. These other threads are said to be waiting for the monitor. So the remaining threads are said to be waiting for the monitor. Now, how can we achieve synchronization? We can achieve this synchronization by using the synchronized methods. All objects have their own implicit monitor associated with them. To enter an object's monitor, just to call a method that has the synchronized keyword. Now, if you want a thread to enter an object's monitor, we need to call a method that has the synchronized keyword. Okay, so let us see how to do it. See this class here, call me. Okay, we have the call method. So in this program we are not doing any synchronization. We are not synchronizing the threads. Okay, so let us see without synchronization what will happen. First, so in this call me class, I have the call method which will take a parameter, that is string. Okay, it will take the string message as a parameter. Next it will display the opening square bracket and the message. Okay, next you will put that thread to sleep for 1000 milliseconds. You have the try and catch block. Okay, whenever you are using sleep method, you need to define the try and the catch block. And finally, okay, after so much of delay, after 1000 milliseconds of delay, you will put the closing square brackets, correct? You will display the closing square brackets and then end. So inside the call method over here, first we will display the opening square brackets, the message, then you will put the thread to sleep for 1000 milliseconds. After it wakes up, it will display the closing square brackets. Next, let us see the caller method. Here caller method implements runnable. Okay, so it is going to create a thread in the caller method. So we have this string message and we are creating an object of the call me class, correct? This is the call me class. So here we are creating an object of the call me class and we are creating a variable of type thread. See this constructor caller. This constructor takes two parameters, the caller constructor. One is an object of the call me class, that is star, and one more is string s. Okay, so that object of the call me class, you will assign it to target variable. Okay, the s string you will assign it to message. Okay, so you will initialize the data and the target over here. Target and data is initialized. Next, what you are doing, you are creating a new thread. Okay, you are creating a new thread for the this object. Okay, and you are storing it in T. Okay, and after that you will start that thread by calling t.start method. When you call t.start, it will call the run method. You can see inside the run method over here for the thread, we are just going to call the call method. That is, target is an object of call me class. So target.call method will call the call method of the call me class. You are passing the message as a parameter here. So here if you see, the call method of the call me class will get executed. Okay, so it will display the square bracket message, sleep for 1000 milliseconds, and after that display the closing square brackets. So that is what the run method of the thread will do. Okay, it will just call the call method of the call me class with that particular message as the parameter. Next, see the main method over here. First we are creating an object of the call me class, that is target is an object of the call me class. Next we are creating three objects of the caller class. Okay, over here you know that the caller constructor takes two parameters. First parameter is an object of the call me class, second parameter is the string. Okay, so we are calling the caller class constructor over here. Okay, we are passing the target object over here, that is the object of call me class. Okay, and we are passing the strings, that is hello synchronized world. Okay, that is what the main thread will do. It will create three objects of the caller class. Okay, so when you are calling the caller constructor thrice, okay, what will happen over here? When you call the caller constructor thrice, three threads are created, correct? Three threads are created and each thread will have the string hello synchronized and then world. So here three child threads are created. Okay, since we are making a call to the caller constructor, see that caller constructor, the caller constructor will create a thread. So since you are calling that caller constructor three times, three threads will be created and those three threads will be started and they will start running over here. Okay, inside the run methods of the thread, you just call the call method of the call me class. Next, what the main thread will do is it will wait for the 3 threads to finish by calling the join method. As I have already told, join method you have to write it in the try and the catch block. Okay, and finally the main thread will exit. Let us see by executing this program, okay, how this program executes. We'll see. We have caller, call me, and sync. Correct? We have 3 classes over there. First is the call me class. Call me class will have that call method which will display opening square bracket message, sleep for 1000 milliseconds and closing square brackets. Next, the caller method, we are going to create a thread. Okay, and we are going to create a thread, start that thread, and in the run method of that thread we are going to call the call method. In the sync class we have this main method which will create an object of the call me class, and then it will create 3 objects of caller class. Okay, so when the constructor of the caller class is called thrice, okay, so when this constructor is called thrice, each time it is called, a thread is created. So if 3 times it is called, 3 child threads are created and they are allowed to run. And finally the main thread will wait for the threads to finish, and finally it will exit. Okay, so let us run this program and see. See here, can you see this output here? Since over there you are not synchronizing the threads, okay, all the 3 threads are executing simultaneously. Correct? Since all the 3 threads are executing, okay, you will get a jumbled output like this. Okay, actual output should be hello synchronized world. Okay, but this is a jumbled output you are going to get. Since you are not synchronizing the threads, you are allowing all the 3 threads to execute simultaneously, the output comes like this. Okay, so this is the jumbled output. You can get it in any form. It need not be hello synchronized world also. It can be synchronized hello world or world hello synchronized. It can be anything. You cannot predict the output. Actual output, how it had to appear is, it had to come like hello close. The first thread had to finish its execution completely. Then the second thread had to print correct, it is hello synchronized world. Then the second object had to complete its execution. Sorry, second thread has to finish its execution completely. After that the third thread had to execute. So this was how the actual output had to come. Okay, but you are getting a gambled output because there is no synchronization between the threads. All the 3 threads are executing simultaneously. Okay, this is how actually the output should have appeared. The first thread should have completed its execution, and only after it completes its execution the second thread should be allowed to execute, and only after the second thread completes its execution the third thread should be allowed to execute. Okay, so how we can achieve this synchronization? So now we have seen without synchronization how the output looks like, how we can achieve this synchronization now. So in this program nothing exists to stop all 3 threads from calling the same method on the same object at the same time. So all three threads are calling the same method on the same object at the same time. So there is nothing controlling that. This is known as race condition. Okay, this is known as race condition because three threads are racing with each other to complete the method. Okay. In most situations, a race condition is more subtle and less predictable because you can't be sure when the context switch will occur. So when this race condition occurs, you cannot predict the output because you will not know how the switching from one thread to another occurs. Okay, that is how the context switching takes place between threads, that you will not see. So you cannot predict the output. To fix the preceding program, you must serialize access to call. Okay, you must serialize the access to the call method. Okay, that is, you must see that the first thread executes the call method, finishes executing, then only the next thread should be allowed to call the call method. To do this, you simply need to precede call's definition with the keyword synchronized. So in the definition of the call method, you need to have a keyword synchronized. Okay, you need to use the synchronized keyword in the definition of the call method. Like this. Okay, inside call me class you have this call method, no? So before that you need to have the synchronized keyword. This prevents other thread from entering call while one thread is using it. Okay, so when one thread is executing the call method, other threads will not be allowed to enter that method. Okay, if you use the synchronized keyword. So after synchronized has been added to the call, the output of the program is as follows. So if you add the synchronized keyword to the call method, the output will appear like this. Okay, let us execute that and see. Let us make this change to the previous program. Inside call me, we have this call method, right? Over here, let me add a synchronized keyword. Synchronized. Correct? Let me add it, save it whenever you are making changes. Now execute. See, now the output comes. Correct? It is coming properly. Okay, because you have synchronized the call method. So when you have synchronized this call method, when one thread is executing, the other thread will not be allowed to enter into the call method. Only when that thread finishes executing, the next thread will be allowed to enter into the call method. Okay, so if you use the synchronized keyword, this is how the output looks like. Correct? So once a thread enters a synchronized method on an instance, no other thread can enter any other synchronized method on the same instance. However, non-synchronized method on that instance will continue to be callable. So non-synchronized methods you cannot control, but synchronized method only one thread can execute it at a time. One more approach for synchronization. This was about creating that method as synchronized, right? One more approach is creating the synchronized statement. Imagine that you want to synchronize access to objects of a class that was not designed for multi-threaded access. So suppose you want to synchronize the access to the objects of a class, okay? And that class was not designed for multi-threaded access. Okay, that is, the class does not use synchronized method. Further, this class was not created by you, but by a third party, and you do not have access to the source code. Now suppose if someone else has created that class and you are just going to use that class, you cannot change the methods of that class. In that case, how can you make the method as synchronized? Correct? You cannot, you are as a user will just use the class that is been created by someone else. Okay, since it has been created by someone else, you cannot change the method of that class. You cannot make that method as synchronized if you have not created that class. Okay, you can only use that class as it is. So in this case, what to do? You can't add a synchronized to the appropriate method within the class since you have not created it. You are just going to use it. It has been created by someone else. So how can access to an object of this class be synchronized? So how can you synchronize the object of the class that someone else has created? You can simply put calls to the method defined by this class inside a synchronized block. So whenever you're calling a method of this class, that call to the method, you put it in a synchronized block. Like this. Okay, synchronized object. Okay, within this block, you call that particular method. This is the general form of the synchronized statement. Synchronized object. Okay, and within that block you will put the statements to be synchronized. Your object is the reference to the object being synchronized. Okay, that is the object of that particular class you want to use. A synchronized block ensures that a call to a method that is a member of the object occurs only after the current thread has successfully entered object's monitor. Okay, so a synchronized block ensures that a call to a method that is a member of the object, okay, a method which is the member of this object occurs only after the current thread has successfully entered the object's monitor. Okay, that is only one thread can call that method on this particular object at a time. Okay, at the same object, only one thread can call that method at a given time. So this program uses synchronized block now. How we can convert this program as synchronized block? This we had the call me method, right? And after that we had the caller method. Okay. Here if you see, inside the run method we have created the synchronized block, right? Here inside the run method we have created this synchronized block from here till here. Correct? Synchronize, the object is target over here. Object is target, target.call message. So you are going to call the call method within the synchronized block over here. You will be calling the call method within the synchronized block. So this is one more way of achieving synchronization. Remaining everything is the same, just that when you are going to call that method, you will put it in a synchronized block. One more way of achieving synchronization. Okay, let us make that change in the program and see the output. This keyword you remove. Okay, inside the call method, what you have to do is synchronized block you have to create, right? Synchronized block you have to create. Take the parameter target. Close. Correct. Save it. Now we will run it and see. This also you can achieve synchronization. So you can achieve synchronization either by making that method synchronized, okay, that is by adding the keyword synchronized to that method, or by calling that method within the synchronized block. In either ways you can achieve synchronization. So that was about this video lecture. So in this module, just two programs are remaining. Okay, one program is multiplying two matrices, and one more topic is inter-thread communication. How you can communicate between threads. There is a producer-consumer problem over there. So those are the only topics that are left in module 4. These topics I will cover it in the next video lecture. So that was all about this video lecture. So thank you so much.